Where's my face gone? Come on. That's no good, is it? Come on then. There we go. Greetings and welcome. My name is Jake Rayson. I am a wildlife I am a wildlife food forest garden designer, and I'm hard at work today. I'm working on a client's garden, and this really live stream that I'm doing really is for the client and also for David for the who's going to hopefully be building the den. So I just need to talk about, yeah, it's kind of garden design related things, and it's I'll just show you the photograph of the site as it is at the moment. So this is the site as it is. Maybe I'll move my face over. Oh, I don't know. That's going to be quite complicated moving my face, isn't it? So as you can see, it's quite a relatively small garden, but you can still have a wildlife and a food forest garden and an ornamental garden in that space. And I think this is really, really important to emphasize that there is an awful lot more design goes on. The smaller the space, the more you've got to think about what fits in where, and it's much more. There's much more to accommodate. But it's, if you're thinking about wildlife, you're thinking about native species, you're thinking about edibles, you can have it all in such a space. So I just wanted to talk about three things. Firstly, I want to talk about the support for the wall. As you can see, it's quite a steep slope. I mentioned this yesterday when I did a live stream. And we're going to have retaining walls, paths and retaining walls. So the kind of question is, what material for the retaining wall? And it's not, you don't actually have to make a decision straight away. I need to get some quotes together. From a design perspective, it's not that, it's not that kind of important to make a decision immediately. But I'm kind of leaning towards gabions because these are the wire frames, these are the wire meshes that you fill with aggregate or material, whatever you've got to hand really. And the reason for this is twofold. Firstly, they are relatively cheap. Well, threefold. They're cheap relatively. They're easy to construct. You still need to dig them in, but they're much easier to construct than laying a wall. And also they're great for wildlife because they contain so many nooks and crannies just by their sheer nature, by their sheer design. So this is the chap John Little. Can I put this in? Oh, I can't remember what to do with it. Yes, there we go. John Little. Whoa, big name, big. He's a fantastic gardener, wildlife gardener, and ornamental. And he's brilliant. He's like a real proper inspiration. I've got a lot of time and respect for what he does, and he uses them quite a bit in his designs as well. So for those three reasons, they're relatively cheap, they're relatively easy to construct, and they're great for wildlife. And it fits in with, it's a new build eco house, and it fits in with the house as well. So it kind of actually does fit in. I think fits in with the look and feel of it. So that's the first thing then, is the retaining wall. Secondly is the paths. And you see what I've done here. I've done some sketches, and these sketches really are more to say, well, let's have a look at the levels, let's have a look at what's going where. And this is without plants, and this is very lightly done. What can happen is, with a sketch, you can just kind of put in all the detail, and you're going to get swamped with all the detail. And this is quite detailed. You can see I've taken it from the photograph. But the key things here are the change in levels and where you've got, so there needs to be a platform here, a platform up here, and there's a platform down here. It's level areas for the den, for one seating area and for another seating area. And if you've got flat level areas, then you're going to have a big old change in levels. So you're going to need a retaining wall. So, and the other thing is there are paths. I'm not 100%. This is the kind of thing you need to do on site, really, just to determine exactly where the paths are going to go and what will work and different heights and everything. But this is just the general idea. There is a path going up to the summer house, a path going to the den. They kind of fork that way, and then I think just one bed here, a path, central path going up to that corner for the bench, and a path running along here behind the wall, really for access. Now I'm also toying with the idea of a low post and rail fence, definitely on here because it's for safety for going up the path, and also for here more to provide a screen really, and it's kind of an interesting one. It really, really is an interesting one, because it gives a bit of texture. It gives us something before, with a structure for the garden. And don't know if it might be overkill. It might be too much for a small space, but it might work. So that's again something I really want to decide on in situ. So the other thing then is, so you can see the retaining walls, and this is where the gabions would be, and then they've got the three. Well, you've got the paths here, 1, 2, 3. And it's the material for the path. Again, this can be decided. You want to keep the path level, but there'll be a step along, and you want to keep the path level. Edging's not so much of an issue because there will be gabions there, so I could actually use the gabions as retaining and also as like edging for the path, or whatever retaining wall type thing that we're putting in. But it's the material for the path. I'm very keen on using hoggin. I think I mentioned this yesterday as well. I'm really, really keen on using hoggin. Hoggin is a naturally occurring gravel, clay and sand mix. It's a self-binding gravel path. Now, the reason for using hoggin is that it's low maintenance, it's impermeable, and so that it's pretty impermeable. You've got to make sure when you install it that you have the rainwater can run off, won't pool. So here it will just be on a very slight camber to make sure that the rain comes off of it. Yeah, and you're not using any plastic with it at all either, and it provides really good habitat as well around the edges of it. So there's lots of reasons I kind of like using it. Again, John Little has used it, so I'm kind of keen to explore that in this situation. And then the other part, so that's the path material. So, but I could use gravel, could use you put hardcore. What's it called? Sub base, which is like dust and gravelly bits which bind together and can be tamped down, and then you put a weed membrane and then gravel on top of that. But I really don't like, it's just like reducing the amount of plastic that we're using in gardens. I think is a good idea. So those are those paths, and that's the retaining walls. And then around here, this is quite an awkward. No, not awkward. It's interesting. Is this corner here with the raised beds built up? The raised beds put in for vegetable gardening, but there's access to them. So what I was thinking of doing is to actually put a curved bed in the corner. You can see. Let me show you. Let me show you on here. So this isn't finalised or anything, but there's a curved bed which you can see. I don't know if you can read 2D maps. There's a kind of curved bed in the corner. Yep. So that's the idea for that. And then there's a path. That means you can have a path running around. The reason you don't have a path next to grass is because paths, you need to have some sort of edging, or you need to have some sort of border boundary plant, because the grass will just grow straight over the path if you've got a lawn eventually. So I think that works well. And there's also a water feature here as well. So I'm kind of very excited about that. General idea is quite good. There's also here, and again, this is, you need to measure it up and be quite careful. I really want to put some planters here, or a raised bed or something to make use of that south-facing home office wall. It's a real, firstly because it will cover it and it will kind of really green up the garden, but also because it's south-facing and you want to make use of the space that you have. So yeah, lots of different plants. I wouldn't have anything thorny, rosy. I wouldn't have a rose on there because it's on next to the path. And then what you do is extend the path slightly, possibly around here as well. But I want to make use of it. You want to make use of what you have. So there we go. That's those parts. So for self-binding gravel, this is a photograph from Sarah Raven, the very well-known gardener, nursery and everything, and she's got self-binding gravel here on this path, which you kind of see, which is kind of nice. So that's the kind of thing, and it can be quite, neutral. I am liking the idea a lot. And then this is for the pond, to kind of keep with the timber. There's a lot of timber here, and I think this will work really well. To kind of keep with this use of wood, and it's quite. These are kind of big old sleepers, quite rough hewn sleepers, is to use half a barrel, but rather than have a half a barrel stick up, which would be too much, it'd be just like stood there. You could sink it down into the ground, and I've done a sketch for that as well. So you can see here, I think I mentioned this yesterday as well. You've got the gravel. Make sure that the wood isn't in contact with the water on the outside, and that kind of makes it last much longer. And then it makes it safer as well. You're putting items in, so any animals or small children wouldn't fall in it. But it's much safer to do it like that. But you can still have it raised up, as, almost like it's a feature in its own right. Did I? Yes, I've got a photograph here. I think this is from Garden as well. So yeah, it's good. They put it straight into the earth, which is not what I would do, but there we go. What do I know? Oh, and this is a photograph of the gabion. This really is to illustrate you can have curved gabions, and you can plant along the top. You can grow medium on the top, and you can also plant, these are house leeks, sempervivums, by the looks of it, and you can plant into the aggregate as well. So you've got a lot of options. I really do like gabions, I must admit. I'm quite taken with them. So that's that part. So we've done the top bit. This is the corner part, and then for the den, now this starts to get really exciting. So I've just done a really simple sketch from a photograph, and this really is just to illustrate there's a change in levels, yeah, and in the spacing isn't quite right on this, but just to get the idea. So this is south facing. The entrance is south facing, and there's a seat above it. I think it would actually just be one wall with some steps going up through the retaining walls. And this is the existing holly, which you'd raise the canopy of as well to keep it pruned, because you don't want holly's slow growing, which is cool, but it is very prickly. So it's got to be careful about where it is and where you put the seating and stuff. And then for the den, I've just done a couple of sketches for the den now. I really want to. It's a den for kids. It's a den for the kids to play in, and it's that feel. It can be need to keep the wood the same look and feel as the existing woodwork there. So the raised beds, but I do want to have some sort of curved entrance. So rather than it be angular, it's like a curved piece of wood which is forming the doorway, and then with swing doors. Doors are open, and then that's permanently open here. So it's not like that gets most of the light in this way, and they've got doors which open. They're small, but that sense that you're inside it. And then there's a retaining wall on the right hand side with a little window on that side. And then they've got bigger windows on that side. So just a really, very quick sketch. You've got these are the windows which should be overlooking the top of the shed. So you've got windows on this side, curved door in the centre, little windows up here. So yes, and the cladding, I would use cladding for it as well. So this would be like a really kind of quite neat and tidy timber frame, using oak, which would I talked to David about this the other day, which was really, really interesting actually. And he's saying it will reduce the amount of wood that you're using to make it simple. It wouldn't, and I'd be love to find out what he thinks about this. And then you use slightly different construction methods. You're not for it as well because it's lighter material and less of it. And then yes, the roof is at an angle which would reflect back on where we've got the other angle. We've got this roof here, so the outdoor office is going that way, and then the shed of the roof of the den will be going that way, so it would actually mirror it nicely just in terms of the shapes. And then for the cladding, then because it's a timber frame, and then use cladding around it. So this kind of cladding is a bit, maybe possibly just to get an idea of the nature of the cladding. So you have a timber frame with timber cladding, but this is off of a photograph of our house, and we've got some larch which we got from Growing Heart, the timber suppliers over in near Newchapel in Pembrokeshire, and it's kind of very tidy. So that kind of would fit in very nicely with the existing raised beds. So I think cladding, timber frame, cladding, and a curved door with little windows. So something along those lines, and a roof. Not sure about the material for the roof. Again, I have to talk to David about that. And in terms of sizes as well, it's so nice because there isn't a vast amount of space to play with, and like getting the proportions right and the spacing right is actually, you know, it's quite, it's tight. It's, yeah, there's a lot to kind of cram in. So I will talk to David about the widths and the dimensions, but the one I've got at the moment is, oh my goodness, 1.6 meters, 2 meters by 1.6 meters. Let me just open up. Oh, I've gone on. So let's just double check that. Yeah, 2 meters long and then 1.6 meters wide. And that's a den, and then the bench is up above it. And as you can see, there isn't that much space around it. So it'll take a little bit of measuring, but that's roughly 1.5 meters, 2 by 1.5 meters wide, 2.5 meters, 2 meters long. That's roughly what we're looking at. But there we go. So yes, I'm very excited about this. Been working on it all day, and yeah, that's it. That's that. So there we go. I don't know if that's interesting for anyone apart from the client or David. And I'm not even talked about plants. I haven't even talked about what plants to use and native and climbers. Oh, because there is just so much. But there's so much to kind of to get into. But this is the kind of structural stuff. This is where the paths are. I've kind of put in some climbers here which are going up the trees, and you could train up the climbers, and I'll be amazing. And then using evergreens, and then you've got espalier fruit trees and all sorts of stuff. Oh yes, and up on the top right hand corner here, just to kind of, there is a bit of a gap if you see up here, and I want to kind of get some shelter, but actually use screening. Trellis would be a very good idea, to put some trellis up, and then that would protect, and that would be for the climbers to go up there, and then that would also protect the view here from this seat. You're not looking straight over at the neighbours, and to give the neighbours some privacy as well. There we go. I'm not going to talk anymore. Okay, I hope that's mildly interesting.